Hi, this is Ben Garber with Virginia Market Ready. On March 2nd, Matt Ludwig and I hopped in the car and drove to Swope, Virginia, an idyllic mountain community nestled in the foothills southwest of Stanton. We were there to talk with Daniel Salatin about the practices used by Polyface Farm, which is his family's farm. The Salatins raise pastured pigs, cattle, and poultry in a multi-generational operation that combines production, marketing, and education regarding their practices and philosophies.
Mr. Salatin, thank you for sharing some time with us today. If you could just introduce yourself.
Yep.
And then tell us about the operation as well.
Sure. Well, good morning. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for coming out. Good to chat with you today. My grandparents bought this farm in 1961. I've grown up here and been here my whole life. We're on Polyface Farm on the western edge of the Shenandoah Valley and just outside of Stanton and in the little thriving metropolis of Swope. And so we've been farming full-time here for over 50 years and have done a lot of different things. And we're a primarily protein-based operation of pastured poultry, salad bar beef, pigerator pork, turkeys, egg layers, rabbits, sheep, ducks, and other miscellaneous animals. So the full gamut of the poultry and poultry and beef and pork, but primarily focusing on the livestock production and marketing those.
So I guess we'll jump into the marketing stuff. Mm-hmm. What do you find is the easiest way to connect or network with buyers?
For us, it's primarily through two things. Number one, they need to see the livestock in the field. And that's the way they can touch it, feel it, smell it, and realize that it's different or realize that it's real and it's not just behind some label. We've had very ineffective labeling, doesn't sell anything for us. So we have two successful ways to market, and that's one, getting people to the farm and showing them. Now, whether that's through a tour, through a special invite, through a barbecue, whatever you can to get them to the farm so they can see the animals. The other component is to taste the product. And so whether that means we give out lots and lots of samples, which we do, or whether it means we go to places and give out samples, cooked or otherwise. But again, the key is tasting the product or seeing, touching, smelling the product. That rules out a lot of typical marketing. Print ads, even a lot of internet ads. Some people could say that is the new frontier. It definitely has its place, but we feel like all of that should be, if we're going to do an internet ad, it should be only inviting them to either try free product or come to the farm for a visit and see that. And that's when we're able to lock in a customer. You can make a sale to somebody with a non-personal touch once, but getting them to truly lock in and buy in, that comes through that tasting and seeing the product. So those are our two main focuses of marketing are that. And so we give out lots and lots of samples and we give out lots and lots of tours and showing people around and getting them to actually connect with the livestock.
Okay. So it's kind of about like getting that initial starting from the point of a relationship rather than starting from the idea of I'm going to make a sale.
Absolutely. It's all about them having a relationship and understanding where my food comes from. Because if they're not buying into the concept that of making a choice with that food dollar of where my food is coming from and how it's being raised or what the spin-off ramifications of my food purchase are, it's not really of value to us from a marketing standpoint. It's nice to sell a few products here and there, but those are not the clients we're going after. We want to go after the customers that are interested in the downstream effects of their food purchase. They're interested in where their food comes from and the health benefits that are in the food that they're putting inside their body every day. So those people are reached through, like I say, that relationship, seeing the livestock and understanding the production of it and then tasting the product itself.
Okay. What are the steps in that process, like breaking it down, particularly as you sell to restaurants?
Sure. For marketing to restaurants, my wife does primarily most of that. One of our concepts for marketing as well is to try and realize a lot of the marketing rules. And that is, a lot of it is statistics and percentages, realizing that a lot of it you're selling to women. So understand that, have women do your marketing and realizing that most of the food that is purchased in America is purchased, that actual decision of pulling it off the shelf, taking it to the register and buying it, is being made by a lot of females. Not everybody, but a larger percentage.
Right.
So when you go to that marketing perspective, you're connecting with, with mothers, people who are of that gender. And so there's that going on. And so it's important to just realize that. So my wife does a lot of the marketing because she can connect directly with them on a real life level. And so those can, they can share that relationships, those stories, those, my kids are driving me crazy today type stuff. That's things that they can connect with. And that boils down to that relationship as you talked about earlier. And that's exactly the case. When we talk about marketing to chefs, very, very different. Higher paced, mostly male, and very, very competitive marketplace from restaurant to restaurant. Perspective. Now it's getting more and more competitive. Even I used to be able to go into a restaurant 10 years ago. I would be the only pastured poultry producer in the geographical area. That's very, very different now. And that applies to the other livestock industries as well. Beef, pork, lamb, all those other things. Which is a good thing because it means we're becoming an actual, legitimate part of the food chain, and that's good. But it does mean that it's becoming more competitive to get an account because there's a lot of other folks out there trying to get them as well. A lot of it's same thing. We want the chefs to come out and see the product. We want them to see that it's not just a label and that it's a real life animal being raised. We want them to come out to... Our basic thing is when we try to make a contact with a chef, it's only to get them to take a sample pack. Okay. And our sample pack is large. It's like $150 value of product. Chicken, beef, pork, the whole gamut of product. Give it to them, free gift, here, enjoy it. Now, most people are usually predisposed to like something that they're given for free, so that's a good marketing plan. And we're typically not interested in trying something out of our norm. We don't go down the toothpaste aisle and just say, I've been Crest forever and now suddenly I'm going to try Arm & Hammer. Okay, unless you're given a sample somehow. So samples work. And we go by the concept of that you can never, one of these concepts that's out there is you can never outgive your customer. And we found that to be 100% true. In other words, if you give, and there's not a percentage connected to it, but the fact is if you give away product, it comes back multiple fold, every time. I wouldn't say 10 to 1 or 100 to 1. I'm not going to throw a number on it. But the fact of the matter is that the more you give, the more people are interested and the more they say, man, this place is great. These people are wonderful, et cetera. And so our goal is to give away a very large, impressive sample pack for them to play with. And then we follow up with that. So our contact is typically any way you can get a contact with the actual kitchen staff or chef. Mm-hmm. Preferably if you can go with a meeting and do a meet and greet, that's great. Typically it's an elevator speech. You need to have 30 seconds. And that's about as much as these high-paid, fast-paced chefs have. They really don't have any time. And so you want to walk in, give them the sample pack, give them your minute-and-a-half elevator speech, and get out of their way, essentially. Not a lot of literature with it, maybe a price list, but essentially the product. Then you can follow up a week later with, how did you like the product? What did you like about the product? What did you not like? Is there a packaging issue? Is there a sizing issue? And a lot of it is, of course, the biggest part, and my wife can speak to this more specifically than I can, but a lot of it is all in background. Before you go to a restaurant, you need to know what is on their menu, where the chef has come from, where they've been educated, what are their entree prices? Are we even in the same ballpark when you're talking your ribeye steaks and their ribeye steak entree, or their chicken breast entree and your chicken breast price? Are you even in the same league? Okay. All that research has to be done beforehand. And that's the beauty of the internet and the ability to do research and Google things. But that way, when you go in, you're not taking them samples of pork ribs, when they're a steakhouse. You want to guide it to their specific needs. And you're not also going in with, $25 filet mignon when their filet price of an entree is $12. Okay? And so those are all things that you don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste their time. You don't want to waste your product. You don't want to waste your sample. But all of that is done by research ahead of time. Okay? And then afterwards, you have the opportunity to follow up. Because if they need, say, pork bellies, okay? You can take them a pork belly, and then you can follow up. Did you like the pork belly? Was it trimmed the way you liked? Was it the right size? And they say, well, no, you brought me a 6-pound belly. I usually like an 8-pound belly. Okay, cool. I just grabbed one off the shelf. I can get you 8 pounds. Those are the things that you can tweak, but all of it is an attempt to get that sample in the door. So that's our chef goal. And then from there, we do weekly contacts with them, and it's their preferred. Some of them like to text, some of them like email, some of them like a phone call, whatever. Some of them like standing orders. Of course, those are the best. But, and then it's a weekly contact to update their order, find out what they want, try to upsell something, try to add something to their portfolio that they're not carrying now. Typically not a hard sell though. Once they get in the routine, 20 chickens a week, 5 bacon sides, that kind of thing. It's pretty straightforward. Again, their time is very important, so you want to keep it pretty brief. And then the deliveries for us, we deliver on Thursdays so that they have it ready to prep for the weekend. And then anything that they get fresh on Thursday has a week shelf life. Okay. So whether it's fresh pork, fresh chicken, whatever, it's processed in such a way and brought to them in a way that they can then keep it for the entire week. Some people like frozen, and then you can do frozen, it doesn't matter. But if they want a fresh product, we deliver it in a way that they can have it for the entire week. And then we try to cross-pollinate, i.e., if we're going to a location and it's kind of out of the way, we ask them to give us people that might be also potential customers. We ask other chefs for hit lists, and they're a lot of times very receptive to that. Because the fact is, if a community or an area becomes a hotbed of restaurants, right, then that creates a better buzz for them. And so it's spin-offs. And then we also like to cross-pollinate in the fact that we can use our social media to direct our current customers to these restaurants that are using our product. And so we can give them shout outs for, hey, this restaurant is using our pork belly this week. Go support them, that kind of thing, and help support them. And that's all the beauty of the free advertising of social media. You just have to do it.
So it seems like on the marketing side, a lot of where you guys add value is in making it easy for the chef. You give them something that's trimmed the way they like, you deliver it. Okay. Yes.
Aside from the fact that you have to be distinctive. You either have to have a very distinctive story, or a very distinctive product, or a very distinctive price. Okay? So when you boil those three things down, you can get someone to buy if you're a very distinctive story. Why are you going to pay 50 cents for a glass of lemonade? Because it's a cute little kid selling it. Right. Okay? Distinctive story. A distinctive product is what we focus on. We want our product to taste better and different than anything they've ever had. Not to mention the nutritional profile is different than anything they've ever had. So chefs are very creative. They're artists. They want to try a new medium. So if they're typically an oil painter, they want to branch out or have the best oils possible. If you can go to an artist that uses oil and bring them a better oil, they're going to be interested. Okay? And that's what we're trying to do there. Which then creates them a better distinctiveness because people go there, wow, that was the best chicken I've ever had. And they give credit to the chefs. And we know it might be our product and a marriage of their skills. But the point is, it creates their unfair advantage. And then the industry has typically gone after the price point, as far as large industrial agriculture type, the system. Yes, exactly. That's kind of a price point. And so we understand that we're not going to be able to compete on the price point. So you don't go in to market to a chef with the concept of beating them on price. You have to know what your strength is. So you market to your strength. And our strength is a distinctive story, which is healing the land with animals and making a regenerative environmental impact with livestock. And then coupling that with the best product you've ever had. So we have a product distinctiveness and a story distinctiveness. Now we get to the price point, and that's where you begin, but we don't go in as our goal. And so when we say we don't apologize for the fact, or we don't expect to beat them on price. And so if you go in knowing that that's what you're going to do, you have a much better chance of success. Because if they go in and they're starting, oh, well, I get my pork for $1.89 and you're at $4 and you're trying to figure out how that's going to work,
it just won't.
It won't. Yeah. You have to figure out a way to do it the other way. Okay.
So what are the different jobs and roles in the selling process?
Okay, for us in the selling process, it's kind of broken down into these categories. We have the production, which is us as the farmer, and of course a lot of it is the same person. So right. In a small operation, it's the same person. But the steps are you have production, you have processing, poultry's done on farm, beef and pork, red meat's done off farm, but the processing is another step. Then we have actual inventorying, which is for us is another step, then the actual marketing itself, and then distribution. Okay. And so just realize that as you begin doing your pricing, all of those have to come into play. Right. And so each one has to have their own margin because some of it is outsourced or some of it can be outsourced. For example, the distribution. We have a distribution plan that we do in-house. We do a lot of the distribution ourselves to restaurants and individuals. But we have a cost on that and we know what it is, so that if that cost was to exceed a certain point, it might be cheaper or more business advantage for us to have someone else do it. Okay? Whether that's someone comes in and it's a part-time job and they deliver a couple days a week for you, which is what we do, or whether you actually have a, large distributor do it for you. You want to go ahead and have those costs in place so that you are prepared and are able to make wise decisions from a business standpoint, whether it's good for you to continue to do it or to have someone else do it for you. Right. Or to begin paying someone when you get too busy. Right. That's the important thing. You want to build that cost into the price, even if you're doing it yourself, so that it comes a time if you're selling thousands of something and you need to bring someone on board to do the delivery or do the processing or do the packing. That price, you don't suddenly have to go and change all your prices. It's just a subset of the costs. Right. Okay?
And I think that's a great point. I think that's something that a lot of farmers miss. They undervalue their own time.
Sure.
There's a reason that everybody isn't growing that. It's just not feasible. You have to have that know-how, and if you're the one making those business connections, you got to value your time doing it as well as everything else.
Absolutely. Yeah, we find a lot of folks just don't pay themselves, and so when we do a business plan, we throw in our labor. I mean, there's a lot of things I do that I don't earn a lot per hour, but on the actual production of product, we have the value return per labor that we want. We have all of our costs figured in, and that goes through every step in the process. So getting for a pastured poultry, to get a chicken from arriving in a box to ready for processing, we have a cost of labor for that bird, each one. Then we have a processing cost to get it from that point to a package. We have that process. We have the marketing process, the distribution process. So then all of those can be broken out separately and paid differently as needed, if needed, when the time comes. And then at the end, it's not like I'm bringing in a distribution person and then suddenly have to go and up my pricing by 10 cents a pound. It's already there.
Right.
And you're just breaking that off and changing the margin that comes back to the farm or the family business, which has impact on volume and turnover, but it's there.
Right. Okay. So when selling directly to restaurants, what food safety procedures and regulations do you follow, and are those different?
Sure.
Individually?
Selling to individuals and restaurants at this point are pretty much the same as far as food safety perspective goes. There are subtle differences, of course, depends on who you talk to. But for us, you can come to the store here and pick up chicken by the piece. You can pick up pork by the cut, beef by the cut. And that all falls under the federal inspection stuff. So a lot of it is USDA stuff. Our beef and pork gets done off-site at a federal inspected plant. So that all is taken care of that way. If it gets delivered to a restaurant, of course, it's in the package with the stamp and the USDA seal on it. So, as long as you keep your temperature correct, you're golden. And that's pretty easy to do. That's the case there. Our chicken and poultry is done under the federal exemption and the state exemptions process. So we can do that here and still sell retail product that way. We're a member of the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund, which is incredibly important. And I advise everyone to join that. And as a farmer, it gives you access to free food law advice 24/7. If you have a non-compliance issue, they will help you with that. They can start off as simple as helping you get your label through so that you have the right information on it. So when you go present it to the food safety folks, it's pretty much ready to go and you shouldn't have any problems. To the fact if you, for some reason, were to be raided by the USDA, they will talk you through what your legal rights are and how to deal with that. So you got the two extremes there, and they are happy with both. So that's a pretty great service that we encourage folks to get involved in. And it's both for food buyers or both. You can both be a part of it. So, that's pretty much, you say what food safety, it's, I don't have a great big file of HACCP plans, but we follow all of the recommendations for, chilling of poultry, handling clean poultry, getting them frozen properly, maintaining temperature, labeling, all that stuff is, following the rules. So,
right. Yeah. Do you, I know they're throwing around a lot of stuff right now, like GAP and, USDA is rolling out all this voluntary stuff. Do you find you ever get interest from buyers about that, or do they not really?
The buyers that we work with right now are mostly concerned in the quality of the product, and they're not worried about the label that's on it, whether that goes from humane certified to organic to GAP certified. Now, there are buyers who are interested and beginning to, get involved in things that require GAP certification. Not sure if that's where we're going to go. It's a huge investment. I don't believe that GAP certification creates safe food. I'll just say that for the record. Yeah. However, I understand that there are places who require that to participate in their sales options. I do believe there's a lot of people out there who are going to continue and maybe even grow their interest in, I'm going to just say, alternative food sources. Okay. And so that would be exempting yourself automatically from all of the main certification process. And I'm going to roll all certifications under, certified organic, GAP, humane, all that stuff. And they just want to, again, come back to the marketing point of they want to come out, they want to see it, they want to touch it. And as long as that's good, they're happy. So I think there's going to be a continued need for that, as well as potential growth in that demographic of people and buyers. Our biggest concern is very size discriminatory. Right. Because to get, again, say a whole chicken certified for GAP certification is a pretty much fixed cost, blanket amount, whether you sell 10 chickens or 10 million. Right. And so our problem is we have no plans to become 10 million. Right. And so that creates a fairly cost discrimination problem. Now, if there was a way to create some empirical testing of cleanliness or of operations or whatnot, that you are able to just kind of either check the boxes or send in tests or what have you that were not size discriminatory, or the price was to a point where it was, realistic, right, then, we would be very interested. But that is still early on in there's a lot of that still in this kind of embryonic phase as the people, it always starts at the top.
And then trickles
down to the reality of small. Right. Now we have, again, the concept of a pocket calculator 30 years ago was ridiculous. Now we have a computer on our phone. Yeah. So things get there. Things trickle down to small size. Yeah.
Okay. And as far as direct sale, production, I would assume is pretty much the same whether you're selling to an individual consumer, restaurant, it's all the same.
Production is pretty much the same, whether it's individual or restaurant. However, for us, we've done both sales primarily to mix and match product, meaning that a homeowner a lot of times doesn't buy the right proportions of something. So if you take a hog, you have a proportion of loin, sausage, belly, shoulder, etc. And a lot of times homeowners over the course of the year use a lot more of one product percentage-wise than another product. So we've used the restaurant marketing as a way to balance out those home buying. So in other words, to have enough pork chops, for example, we need to pick up a barbecue place or a barbecue restaurant of some kind to use all the hams and shoulders so that we can offer enough pork chops to the home buyers. Okay. So those are the kind of connections that you can make to mix and match. I mean, for example, we sell a lot of boneless, skinless chicken breasts. Okay. That's a big home buyer. A lot of people think it's great. I mean, has its upsides, certainly has a lot of cost, but anyway, but that creates a lot of chicken carcasses, just bones and backs and stuff. So we partnered with a stock operation that's making chicken stock, chicken broth, that's selling to Mom's My Organic Market. And so we're selling our chicken backs to them after we, again, a very low price, But it's another way to use up the entire bird instead of just whatever, throwing it away or composting it or what have you. And so that's, again, you have home buyers who want a lot of chicken breasts. We don't sell hardly any chicken breast to restaurants. It's too expensive. Okay. But home buyers love it. That's what they want. And then we can turn around and value add the chicken backs through stock or soup. And then it goes out to, either, other retails or get sold otherwise. So that's a way that you can kind of mix and match your retail sales to individuals with your more bulk or restaurant purchases. Okay. Those are two examples. So I guess to follow that up, is just the production situation doesn't change. It just goes into marketing the whole product. Realize we don't ship boneless, skinless breast to China so that we can sell legs and thigh quarters at a barbecue place down the street. We all have to sell the whole thing. And so we just have to mix and match our marketing to make that work. Okay.
Walk us through, a couple of positive experiences that you've had with direct sales.
Sure. Direct marketing is very rewarding. It is a non-stop continuing process to market. And once you make the decision to market, you're always marketing. I guess from a positive standpoint, we're able to make those connections and those relationships. You get to see, for us, positive things have happened. Everything from people who weren't able to eat industrial chicken are now able to eat chicken because of the way we process it and the way we raise it. We have people who are not able to eat because of health reasons or allergic reactions, say large production egg operation. They can eat our eggs. Those are success stories that you can see. You can have, for us, of course, we are direct marketing because we want to stay in business. For us, with the volatility of commodity market, especially, just look at the last couple of years in beef prices, to have that kind of consistent guarantee price, if you will, has made huge volumes. Now, when the prices were way up, it really wasn't making a lot of sense for us to do what we were doing. We could almost make more money, have less overheads, just taking it to the sale barn and selling it. Mm-hmm. But this fall, we did really, really well. Yeah. And so the more times than not, their prices are lower on commodity sales versus higher, especially on pork right now. Pork is terrible wholesale or live. But for us, it's very, very consistent and has a nice even line. So, it's the reason we're still in business. It's the reason we're here. It's the reason we're able to employ people. It's the reason we're able to partner with other people, both farmers and delivery people and marketers and, those kind of successes. So the successful stories of our marketing story are very diverse. The concept of being able to have true rural development and have, an on-farm store and have people hired now to man it and all of those components wouldn't happen without direct sales. The satisfaction of truly knowing where your food is going is very rewarding. Instead of it just going off into the big abyss conglomerate somewhere. And yes, you're feeding the world. There's no argument about farmers feeding the world. But it's nice to know that it's nice to put a face with that world and to say, you ate my pork sausage this morning and I know you and you know me. Yeah. And that is a huge difference from a emotional reward standpoint than just, I took my hogs to the market and they went out there.
Yeah, there is a difference between feeding the world and sharing a meal with a friend.
Absolutely. That's well said. Yep.
Do you guys have anything that stops you from selling more products directly to restaurants?
Sure. I think the limiting factor for us on restaurant marketing is, I think a lot of it's that scalability cost problem. In other words, when you say that a large packer can get a hog in primal cuts for literally dollars because of the volume, and the regulatory requirements are the same on a plant that does 10,000 hogs a day and a plant that does 20 hogs a day. We see it mostly in that beef and pork range where we have the processing costs from a small plant, which we love. We get along great with our small plant. But the fact is there's just not enough volume in production for them to overcome the fixed prices of regulatory oversight that are the same as a multi-million, billion-dollar plant.
Right.
And so I think that's where we see. So what that does is create a cost prohibition as we pass that on to the customer to make us competitive or to allow us to be competitive to commodity prices. Mm-hmm. And so we know in our margins and the money that and the process and the business plans that we run, we can produce beef, pork, poultry more effectively at a lower price point than, a large industrial production. Where the sticky part becomes is the actual processing and distribution, because we're doing it in small amounts. Right. And so that's where that gets passed on to the customer. So, when you look at the price point of our product, when it goes from birth or hatching to ready for market, we're better than confinement operations. We're better than commodity operations. We get that because we're a least cost producer. We're very low in production. All of the extra cost, the reason that niche food is expensive or, is hard to sell, a niche, is because of all of those added costs after production. Okay. Processing, marketing, distribution. And a reason that is the fact is due to regulatory oversight. Okay. Realize that I could have a skilled butcher come to the farm, have a nice cement pad, maybe a small little room. Right. Process 12, 15 hogs a day, all by himself, get paid an excellent wage. Right. And sell pork in complete compliance with regulatory code from a cleanliness standpoint. Right. Minus the stamp of approval. Which is the problem. Right. And I could be selling pork for very competitive with industrial pork. But when you add in the transportation to another processor in small lots, mm-hmm. the extreme cost for processing in small lots, and then the distribution back and the distribution out, that is where we lose our competitiveness. For me, a lot of people accuse us, my dad Joel and us as Polyface, of being accusatory to regulations and that being the hang up. But it truly is. If those were non-existent, realize that 100 years ago, they didn't exist. People lived fine. There wasn't massive foodborne illnesses other than when the foodstuffs began transportation. So when we started moving milk and meat across country, cities began to grow. You begin to have these larger transportation of milk and poultry and meat. Suddenly you did have food issues. But when people were eating from their own backyard, and I use backyard figuratively, within a few miles from a small food shed, there wasn't the large foodborne bacteria problems. Mm-hmm. So the fact that we're still here after thousands of years of living without the USDA has a fairly large precedent to the fact that it's doable. Right. Okay. Now, I understand if you're shipping from Virginia to California, if you're shipping from Brazil to here, there are requirements, and I get that, and I'm not saying it doesn't need to happen. However, if I'm wanting to sell to my neighbor with an inspection with a food that should be free of inspection, it seems like we ought to be able to come up with something that works, some type of exemptions that would work, and then we would be on a cost competitive scale. So for me, a lot of the hurdles to reach other markets is the logistics of distribution in a competitive way and the regulatory hurdles that keep me from doing what I want to do.
Right. Do you feel that direct sales have given you a better knowledge of your customers?
Oh, without a doubt. Direct sales have we've learned everything from them. Everything from chef's feedback on how to get something cut to the fact that they use thousands of something, and so they can really attest to the fact that our eggs make their cakes rise more, or that if some of their workers are cutting up chicken that have, like the chlorine sanitation bath, they get a rash on their hands, and with ours, they don't get a rash on their hands. So things like that we obviously don't eat or use industrial product. Right, and so yeah, we have plenty of meat, so there's no problem there. And so they know those things, and they have experience in it. So just stories like that we would never have known otherwise. Things that, like, They think that some chefs have told us that our pork, for example, is more cost effective for them to buy, even though it's more expensive, because there's less loss in the cook down process. Same with the chicken. They don't lose as much water weight in the cooking process because they don't have as much water in soak.
It's leaner as well. That helps.
Exactly. There's a lot of that. Our fat is very edible in that it stays soft because it's a pasture-based operation, so it's not difficult to eat. It's not unsavory or bad feel. Right. And so a lot of times they saves them a lot of trim time. And so there's things like that that come out of the chef and customer interaction, typically chefs, because they deal with so much. And that is has a huge education process and value to us to be able to exchange that information.
How do you think the process of direct sale has changed in the past 5 years, or even, because you guys have a history looking back farther?
Sure. Direct marketing has changed a lot. I mean, certainly many years ago, when I'd go up to someone and say, do you want to buy something? I had to convince them that it was a good idea, just from, whether you call it organic. I mean, we're not certified, so I can't use that word, but whether it's natural or pasture-based, they'd be like, why? I've never even heard of such a thing. Right. So now that's not the case. Now people understand that, I should be concerned about my food, and there's a lot of people who are interested in that. So that's changed a lot. Certainly social media and networking has created an opportunity to safeguard and watchdog marketing campaigns. So, if you go into and look at a label, it's got a beautiful red barn on it and a cute little farm setting. But if you go to the website of that company, then suddenly you realize it's not. And through public source, that was not attainable 30 years ago. You didn't have that kind of ability. And so that's a good thing. That's helpful. More recently, we've seen an incredible shift towards the local product and just in general. So that's good. We've also seen a shift after the economic bubble a few years ago, changed a lot of the buying trends. We were always selling out of the steaks and the pork chops and the high-end product. Now it's the opposite. We're selling out of ground beef, sausage. Well, we're not sold out of sausage right now, but anyway, the sausage, the lower end product, because people realize that, hey, I can get the same percentage of protein, fat, calories essentially from $5 a pound sausage as opposed to $13 a pound ribeye steak. Right. Okay. And so you realize that people are being more price conscious, realize they want to eat healthy and they want to eat from a local source that they know, but they're also trying to be more price conscious after the economic collapse. So that has changed a lot. So, just from our perspective, we were always going out 10 years ago trying to find markets for our low end products, ground beef, sausage. We had a lot of that stocked up in inventory. And now it's the other way around. And we're going out and trying to find places for the pork chops and things like that. So it's just been a shift in buying trends. We're seeing a lot more interest in like the soups and the stocks and the bone broths and things like that. Again, beef bones, I could barely give them away 10 years ago. Now they don't last 10 minutes in the inventory. So just buying trends in general, as people are becoming more educated about where nutrition and nutrients really come from, people are beginning to change their buying habits. Those are some of the things we've seen.
Okay. And then what do you think the next 10 years or so? What do you think? Yeah, I guess
sure.
Crystal ball kind of question.
Right, sure. The 10 years, I really don't know. I mean, I know we're going toward what we call industrial organics. That's kind of our big competition right now, where you have a lot of the big name players are shifting towards either pastured or organic. And so you're able to go into, what used to be, if you wanted an organic product, you went to a health food store, and that was where you found it. Now you can get it at Kroger's and Martin's and Costco and Walmart and all that. And of varying degrees of reality. I mean, are they real? Just because they slap an organic label on it, what does that actually mean? And so again, I am very trusting of social media and networking to find out what that really is, get to the bottom of it, and explain to customers the difference and the reason they would still want to buy our product versus something they pick up for 99 cents a pound at Walmart. I also would like to hope that as people become more interested in that they're more interested in food, which becomes more educated. And so educated food buyer is one that I'm interested in. And so as people make the decision, even if they're at Costco or wherever, if they're making a decision between industrial, just fed regular stuff, all this, whatever pork, and they're making a choice to go to organic pork, that's a start.
Right.
And then that creates an opening. So, well, if you're already making that decision, let's look at the next decision.
Right.
You know, you don't move a 1 customer to a 10 customer overnight.
Right.
You know, 1 meaning they eat just whatever shows up on the dollar menu, and 10 means they cook at home and they eat everything whole and all this stuff.
Right.
You don't move them overnight. You take it incrementally. And so just one person making one step is a positive thing. And so I'm excited about that. I also think that with the food interest climate, along with that comes not only creativity in food distribution through, you know, buying clubs and volume purchasing and a lot of different social media driven purchasing ideas. And there's a lot of them out there. Those are great. I think that's very exciting. You know, the idea of the collapse of box stores in general, just brick and mortar stores, that's happening in food too. And I think that's exciting because it creates more of a level playing field for real costs, you know, for delivery of product. And so I think that's good. I think it also creates a climate where people are interested in what happens with the regulatory climate.
Right.
There's not only some exemptions that are being broken, there's some barriers that are being broken down to create some exemptions, as well as people becoming aware just through even interviews like this of some of those regulatory hurdles that keep us from being competitive. And so, you know, let's sit down at a table and try to work those out. So certainly don't have a crystal ball, but I am very optimistic. I also think, again, in food production, that's not going anywhere. It's going to change. It's going to look different. We're going to market differently. We might raise something different. But again, people have to eat food. And so it's a very stable business to be in. And we feel like down the road, it's something that will keep us farming, you know, for a long time.
Right. What advice do you have for growers who are new to direct sales?
Sure.
Necessarily already covered.
Well, I mean, I think the first advice I would say to anybody that's even considering raising something and selling it is to go for it. It's incredibly rewarding. It's a lot of work, but the return is the difference between the margin difference is a lot of times the difference between continuing to farm through the next generation and putting up a for sale sign.
Right.
And that's huge. I can't understate that. The other component I would say is that just start, you know, get your feet wet, learn by mistakes. Don't worry about it. Just try it. Plan on giving away a lot of product. Just do that. Get it. And again, just if you're trying to raise pasture poultry, for example, we say raise 50, give away 25, eat 25. You know, just start. Or if you really want to be if you think you got a lot of friends, raise 100, give away 50 to 75 and eat the other 25 yourself so that you have to tell your story. You have to create a story. And whether that means you were, you know, cured of some long-term disease because you started eating bone broth, or whether it means that you are now farming with your family and you are connecting with the next generation, whatever. You have to create your story. So spend time, think about that, work on that, all the while creating trying to grow and produce things in a way that leaves the environment, your health, the health of your customers, the community, and that's the community economically, environmentally, all of those components in a better state. If all of those things are improving through what you're doing as a business and an operation, then you are going to be more stable for down the road. You know, if you are building your operation at any of those components, degradation, or you're mining Peter to pay Paul, if you will,
right,
you're not stable. So I just encourage people to really think about all of those components, making sure they're all improving, then just get started.
Okay.
Okay?
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time.
That's a wrap.
It was fantastic to hear Daniel's experience not just as a small businessman, but also as a veteran of the direct marketing industry in the Shenandoah Valley. A huge thanks to Daniel for his time and for sharing his wisdom with us. We are Virginia Market Ready, helping you get your food from the field to the fork.